The broken messenger, the mining colony, burns. The taste of copper filled Lieutenant Sarah Chen's mouth as she pressed her face against the cold metal floor of the communication center. Above her, the elegant forms of Zephyrian soldiers moved with fluid grace, their crystalline armor catching the emergency lighting that flickered through the ruined colony. Each step they took created a musical chime, a sound that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Sarah's right arm hung useless at her side, broken during the initial bombardment when the ceiling had partially collapsed. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, both her own and that of her fallen comrades. The communication array she had spent 3 years maintaining lay in sparking ruins around her, its screens dark and cables severed. Through the shattered windows, she could see the mining colony of New Tasmania burning. What had once been humanity's most successful asteroid mining operation was now a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. The residential domes had been cracked open like eggs, their contents spilled into the vacuum of space. The great harvester machines that had carved precious minerals from the asteroid's core stood silent and broken. Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire studied the human with something resembling amusement. His species was tall and elegant, with skin that shifted between silver and blue depending on the light. His forearms moved independently as he gestured to his subordinates, each motion precise and calculated. This is what remains of human resistance? Veltar's voice carried the musical quality of his species, but there was mockery in the tone. One broken communication officer and her primitive equipment? Sarah kept her breathing steady despite the pain radiating from her ribs. She had learned enough about Zephyrian psychology during her years of monitoring their communications to know they respected strength above all else. Showing weakness now would only encourage their cruelty. The colony's defense grid was more sophisticated than our intelligence suggested, admitted Subcommander Kretal, her voice carrying a note of frustration. Their missile systems managed to damage 2 of our assault frigates before we could neutralize them. Veltar turned one of his 4 eyes toward his subordinate while keeping the others fixed on Sarah. Human ingenuity, they call it. The ability to make dangerous weapons from mining equipment and civilian technology. Still, it matters little now. The colony is ours. Sarah finally lifted her head, meeting the commander's gaze with steady brown eyes. "You think this is over?" she asked quietly. The Zephyrians exchanged glances, their skin colors shifting to deeper blues, a sign of surprise in their species. Veltar approached Sarah, his tall form casting multiple shadows in the flickering light. "You are defeated, human. Your people are dead or captured. Your communication systems are destroyed. What could possibly make you believe this situation will change?" The commander's tone carried genuine curiosity rather than malice. Sarah struggled to a sitting position, using her good arm to prop herself against the remains of her workstation. "You don't understand humans very well, do you?" "We understand enough," Kretal interjected. "You are a young species, barely past your first millennium of spaceflight. You lack the advanced technology, the unified government, the military discipline that marks a truly civilized race. You fight with converted civilian ships and jury-rigged weapons. You are admirable in your determination, but ultimately primitive." A small smile crossed Sarah's bloodied lips. "Primitive. You keep using that word." Veltar knelt down to Sarah's level, bringing his face close to hers. Up close, she could see the intricate patterns in his crystalline armor, the way it seemed to grow from his skin rather than being worn over it. "Your communication equipment, for instance. We have studied it. Crude electromagnetic transmission, limited range, susceptible to interference. Our quantum entanglement networks can communicate instantly across the galaxy without any possibility of interception or jamming." "Very impressive," Sarah admitted. "But you're missing something important about our primitive systems." "And what would that be?" Sarah's smile widened slightly. "They're really hard to completely destroy." Before Veltar could respond, Sarah pressed her good hand against a hidden panel beneath the debris. A section of the floor slid away, revealing a compact but intact emergency transmitter. Its screen flickered to life, showing a steady stream of data. Impossible. Kretal raised her weapon, but Veltar gestured for her to wait. You see, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger despite her injuries. While you were busy destroying our main communications array, this little backup unit has been working continuously for the past 6 hours. It's been broadcasting on 17 different frequencies, using 7 different encryption codes, bouncing the signal off 3 different relay satellites. Veltar's skin color shifted to a warning orange. Broadcasting what exactly? Everything, Sarah said simply. Colony status, enemy force composition, tactical analysis, estimated civilian casualties, but most importantly, coordinates and a request for immediate assistance. The Zephyrian commander stood, his elegant form suddenly radiating menace. You are bluffing. Our sensors would have detected any transmission. Would they? Sarah activated. Another control, and a holographic display materialized above the transmitter. It showed a 3-dimensional map of local space, with dozens of small indicators moving through the void. Your quantum networks are amazing for long-distance communication, but they don't work well for detecting old-fashioned radio waves, especially when those waves are being transmitted on frequencies that mimic stellar background radiation. Kretal moved to her own scanning equipment, her 4 arms working frantically across the controls. Commander, I'm detecting multiple electromagnetic anomalies in the surrounding space. The signals are weak and scattered, but they're definitely artificial. Moreover, Sarah continued, human communication protocols include something your advanced networks don't need: redundancy. Every message gets sent multiple ways, through multiple channels, with multiple backup systems. It's inefficient, primitive, and absolutely impossible to completely stop. Veltar's armor began to emit a low humming sound, a sign of agitation in his species. Even if you have managed to send a distress call, the nearest human fleet is weeks away. By then, we will have stripped this asteroid of its resources and moved on. That's the other thing you don't understand about humans, Sarah said, her voice now carrying a note of satisfaction that made the Zephyrians unconsciously step back. We don't just have fleets, we have communities. The main display screen, which the Zephyrians had assumed was completely destroyed, suddenly flickered to life. Static cleared to reveal the face of a grizzled man in civilian clothes, standing in what appeared to be the bridge of a cargo hauler. New Tasmania, this is Captain Rodriguez of the freighter Distant Thunder. We received your distress call. Help is coming. More screens activated around the room, each showing a different face. A woman in mining gear speaking from an ore processor. A family of colonists broadcasting from their personal transport. A group of teenagers who had converted their racing yacht into a weapon platform. New Tasmania, this is the mining vessel Iron Lady. We're 40 minutes out and carrying converted plasma cutters. This is the passenger liner Serenity. We've got 300 volunteers aboard and we're armed for bear. Salvage ship Lucky. Strike here. Our cargo hold is full of mining explosives and we're not afraid to use them. Veltar watched in growing amazement as more and more screens activated. The communications array that had appeared destroyed was revealing itself to be a network of hidden transmitters and receivers, each one connecting to another human ship, another group of volunteers, another improvised weapon of war. This is impossible, he whispered. Our intelligence indicated this was an isolated mining colony with minimal defenses. Sarah managed to pull herself fully upright, leaning against her workstation with her good arm. That's because you think like an empire. You see military units, government fleets, official responses, but humans, we're different. When one of us calls for help, all of us answer. The communications board lit up like a constellation, each light representing another ship, another group of humans who had heard the call and were coming to help. Cargo haulers and passenger liners, mining ships and personal yachts, families, and loners, merchants, and pirates, all converging on the coordinates Sarah had been broadcasting. Estimated arrival of the first wave is 37 minutes, Sarah announced, reading from her instruments. Second wave in 45 minutes. Third wave, well, they're still coming. Last count was over 200 ships. Kretal's voice carried a note of panic. "Commander, our 3 assault frigates cannot possibly handle a fleet of that size. They're civilians," Veltar protested. "Untrained, unorganized, flying converted commercial vessels." Sarah laughed, a sound that was both painful and triumphant. "Exactly, and that's what makes them so dangerous. Military ships follow predictable patterns, use standard tactics, have known capabilities. But civilians? They're completely unpredictable. That cargo hauler might be carrying mining explosives. That passenger liner could have been converted into a missile platform. That little family transport might have a young engineer aboard who's figured out how to overload their fusion reactor." On the screens around them, the approaching fleet continued to grow. Each ship was different, each crew unique, each approach creative and chaotic. There were no formation flights, no synchronized maneuvers, no standardized equipment. It was a swarm of individual determination and human ingenuity, impossible to predict or counter with conventional tactics. "The beautiful thing about human primitive technology," Sarah continued, "is that it can be modified, adapted, and improvised in ways your advanced systems can't. When every ship is different, when every crew makes their own decisions, when every weapon is a creative solution to a unique problem, how do you plan a defense against chaos itself?" Veltar stared at the growing constellation of approaching ships, his elegant mind struggling to process the tactical impossibility of the situation. His species had conquered 17 different civilizations, each time using superior technology and coordinated military might to overwhelm organized resistance. But this was something entirely new. As if reading his thoughts, Sarah smiled through her pain. "You wanted to see human determination, Commander? You're about to get a masterclass." The first ship appeared on the edge of sensor range, a converted mining vessel bristling with improvised weapons. Behind it, the void of space began to fill with the chaotic, beautiful, impossible sight of humanity answering the call. The fleet arrives. The first ship to break through the asteroid field was nothing like what Commander Veltar had expected. The mining vessel Iron Lady emerged from behind a massive rock formation with all the grace of a charging rhinoceros, her hull scarred by decades of asteroid impacts and her engines glowing with an angry red light that suggested they were running far beyond safe parameters. "Commander," Kretal announced from her sensor station, "the vessel appears to be singing." Indeed, as the converted mining ship approached, it was broadcasting an old human song across all frequencies. The melody was crude and raucous, something about mining and drinking and fighting, but it was being sung by dozens of voices in harmony. Behind the Iron Lady, more ships began to appear, each one adding their voices to the growing chorus. Veltar watched through the observation deck of his command frigate as the human fleet materialized from the darkness of space. It was unlike anything in his military experience. There were no neat formations, no synchronized maneuvers, no standardized designs. Instead, it looked like someone had gathered every functional spacecraft within 100 light years and pointed them all in the same direction. A massive passenger liner drifted alongside a tiny personal yacht. A cargo hauler bristling with welded-on weapon mounts flew in loose formation with what appeared to be a luxury cruise ship. Mining vessels, salvage ships, transport barges, even what looked like a converted space station moving under its own power, all of them converging on the coordinates Sarah Chen had been broadcasting. "Status report," Veltar commanded, trying to maintain his composure. 237 ships and counting," Kretal replied, her voice tight with disbelief. "Mass ranges from small personal craft to vessels larger than our flagship. Weapon signatures are inconsistent. I'm detecting everything from military-grade plasma cannons to what appears to be modified industrial equipment." "How do we engage such a force?" Sub-Commander Thelvan asked from the tactical station. Veltar studied the approaching swarm, his tactical training struggling to process what he was seeing. "We concentrate fire on the largest vessels first, eliminate their command ships, and disrupt their coordination." But even as he spoke, he realized the flaw in that thinking. There were no command ships. Each vessel was operating independently, making its own decisions, following its own approach vector. The fleet wasn't coordinated. It was organic, growing, and adapting moment by moment. The communications array in the ruined colony below crackled to life again. Sarah's voice, still weak but determined, reached every ship in the growing fleet. All vessels, this is New Tasmania Control. Enemy forces consist of 3 Zephyrian assault frigates, designation unknown. They have superior shields and weapons, but limited maneuverability in asteroid field. Recommend harassment tactics and hit-and-run attacks. Copy that, Control. Came the immediate response from Captain Rodriguez aboard the Distant Thunder. We've got mining charges and a really bad attitude. Beginning our approach now. What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded galactic history. The human ships didn't form battle lines or execute coordinated maneuvers. Instead, they swarmed like angry insects, each vessel pursuing its own tactical plan based on its unique capabilities and the creativity of its crew. The Iron Lady opened the attack by launching a spread of modified mining charges, each one programmed to home in on the largest energy signature. The Zephyrian shields absorbed the explosions easily, but the blasts created massive clouds of metallic debris that interfered with their sensors. While the enemy was dealing with the sensor disruption, a converted cargo hauler called Second Chance swooped in from an unexpected angle. Her cargo bay doors opened to reveal not weapons, but a massive magnetic crane typically used for moving shipping containers. The crane locked onto one of the Zephyrian frigate's sensor arrays, and with a tremendous grinding sound that transmitted through the ship's hull, tore it completely away. "Impossible!" Veltar shouted as alarms began blaring throughout his command bridge. "How are they generating enough magnetic force to—" His question was answered when the cargo hauler's engines suddenly flared with dangerous intensity. The ship was using its entire reactor output to power the magnetic crane, a modification that would have been rejected by any military engineer as too risky. But it worked, leaving the Zephyrian frigate partially blind and vulnerable. The human fleet pressed their advantage with chaotic creativity. A luxury yacht that had been converted into a missile platform launched a barrage of projectiles that appeared to be nothing more than empty cargo containers. The Zephyrian point defense systems ignored them as harmless debris until they exploded in massive fireballs that lit up the asteroid field. They filled shipping containers with industrial fuel and mining explosives, Kretal reported in amazement. Each one has the destructive power of a military torpedo, but they don't register as weapons on our sensors. A family transport called New Horizons appeared to be fleeing the battle, its engines running at maximum power as it streaked away from the fighting. The Zephyrian tactical computers dismissed it as a non-threat, focusing instead on the more obviously dangerous vessels. Too late, they realized that the transport was actually positioning itself for a precision strike. The ship's young engineer, a teenager named Marcus Webb, had spent the journey to New Tasmania modifying their fusion drive in ways that violated every safety regulation in human space. As the New Horizons reached the optimal position, Marcus vented the drive's containment field directly toward the nearest Zephyrian frigate. The result was a controlled fusion explosion that stripped away the enemy ship's shields and left its hull glowing with residual radiation. The New Horizons itself was nearly destroyed by the blast, but the Webb family had accomplished something that would have required a full military squadron using conventional tactics. "Status report," Veltar demanded as his flagship shuddered under impact from another improvised weapon. "Hull breach on deck 7 through 9, Thelvan reported. That converted ore processor somehow turned its cargo of refined metals into a directed energy weapon. The beam cut right through our primary shields." On the screen surrounding the command bridge, the battle continued to evolve in ways that defied all military logic. Human ships that appeared to be retreating would suddenly reverse course and attack from unexpected angles. Vessels that looked like helpless cargo haulers would reveal hidden weapons or execute maneuvers that should have been impossible for ships of their design. A salvage vessel called Lucky Strike had somehow managed to attach itself to the hull of the second Zephyrian frigate using magnetic grapples. Instead of trying to board the enemy ship, the salvage crew was systematically dismantling its external equipment, cutting away sensors, weapons, and communication arrays with the same methodical precision they used to strip valuable components from derelict spacecraft. "They're taking us apart piece by piece," Kretal observed with something approaching admiration. "It's not a military assault. It's an industrial operation, The most unsettling aspect of the battle, from Veltar's perspective, was the constant communication between the human vessels. Unlike military formations that maintained radio silence or used encrypted channels, the civilian fleet chattered, constantly on open frequencies. They shared target information, coordinated attacks, warned each other of dangers, and celebrated successful hits with the enthusiasm of children playing a game. Second chance to all vessels. That freight hauler technique works great. Just grabbed another sensor array. Lucky strike here, we've got their port weapons offline. Someone want to take advantage of that? This is the Serenity coming in, with 300 passengers who are really angry about what happened to the colony. Stand clear of our approach vector. The passenger liner Serenity had been transformed into something that was part troop transport, part missile platform, and part communications hub. Her captain, Elena Vasquez, had spent her career moving families and workers between the outer colonies. Now she was coordinating the civilian fleet with the same skills she used to manage complex passenger manifests and cargo schedules. All ships, this is Serenity Control, Captain Vasquez announced. We're seeing some beautiful work out there, but let's remember we've got civilians to evacuate from the colony surface. Mining teams focus on keeping those Zephyrian ships busy. Passenger vessels start preparing for search and rescue operations. Even in the middle of battle, the human fleet was thinking about rescue operations. Ships that weren't directly engaged in combat were already moving toward the damaged colony, their cargo bays being cleared to accommodate survivors. Medical personnel aboard the various vessels were coordinating treatment plans for both human and alien wounded. This dual focus, fighting and rescuing simultaneously, proved to be yet another factor the Zephyrians hadn't anticipated. Their military doctrine assumed that combat operations and humanitarian efforts were separate phases of an engagement. The idea of conducting both simultaneously was foreign to their strategic thinking. "Commander," Thelvan announced, "we're receiving a communication from the human fleet. It's unusual." "Put it through," Veltar ordered. The main screen flickered to show Captain Rodriguez of the Distant Thunder, his weathered face grinning despite the battle raging around him. Behind him, Veltar could see a bridge that was part cargo hauler, part weapon platform, and part family gathering space. Children were visible in the background, along with elderly relatives and what appeared to be several pets. "Zephyrian Commander," Rodriguez said cheerfully. "I'm Captain Rodriguez, and I guess I'm speaking for this crazy fleet. We wanted to make you an offer." Veltar's tactical mind reeled at the impossibility of the situation. "You're in the middle of a battle and you want to negotiate?" "Well, see, that's the thing," Rodriguez continued. "We're not really here to fight you. We're here to help our people. But you're kind of in the way of that, so we're going to have to ask you to move." "You are demanding our surrender?" Rodriguez laughed, a warm sound that somehow made the weapons fire and explosions in the background seem less threatening. "Surrender? Commander, we're asking you to be reasonable. Look around you. We've got over 300 ships now, with more arriving every hour. We've got miners who know how to use explosives, engineers who can turn anything into a weapon, and families who are really upset about what you did to their friends." As if to emphasize his point, another improvised attack struck Veltar's flagship. This time it was a converted research vessel that had somehow modified its deep space sensor array to emit a focused electromagnetic pulse. The blast temporarily disabled the Zephyrian ship's navigation systems, sending it drifting helplessly through the asteroid field. "But here's the thing," Rodriguez continued, his tone becoming more serious. "We're also the same people who will patch up your wounded, share our food with your crews, and help you repair your ships if you let us. That's just who we are." The communication ended, leaving Veltar staring at a blank screen while explosions continued to light up the space around his damaged fleet. For the first time in his military career, he was facing an enemy that was simultaneously trying to destroy his ships and offering to provide medical assistance to his crews. It was, he realized, the most human thing imaginable. The moment of truth, Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his tactical display dissolve into chaos. Two of his assault frigates were effectively crippled, their hulls scarred by improvised weapons and their systems failing under the constant harassment from the human fleet. His own ship was barely functional, drifting through the asteroid field with damaged engines and compromised life support. The human fleet had grown to over 400 vessels, ranging from massive cargo haulers to tiny personal craft. They moved through space like a living organism, each ship responding to opportunities and threats with creative independence, while somehow maintaining an overall coordination that defied military understanding. "Commander," Kretal announced from her station, "I'm detecting massive power buildups from multiple human vessels. I think they're preparing for a final assault." Veltar's 4 arms moved across his control interfaces, trying to assess his remaining options. He could call for reinforcements, but the nearest Zephyrian fleet was weeks away. He could attempt to retreat, but his ships were too damaged to outrun the pursuit. He could fight to the end, but that would accomplish nothing except unnecessary death. "Sir," Sub-Commander Thelvan called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the humans. Multiple sources this time." The main screen divided into several sections, each showing a different human face. Captain Rodriguez was there, along with Captain Vasquez from the Serenity, the grizzled face of a mining foreman, a young woman who appeared to be an engineer, and several others. But the central image showed Lieutenant Sarah Chen, now clearly aboard one of the rescue ships and receiving medical treatment. "Commander Veltar," Sarah said, her voice stronger now but still showing the effects of her injuries. "I want to show you something." The display changed to show a view of space from one of the human vessels. But instead of focusing on the battle, the camera was pointed toward the damaged colony. Streams of small ships were moving between the larger vessels and the asteroid surface, carrying supplies and evacuating survivors. "Those are your people down there too," Sarah continued. "Zephyrian civilians who were working in the colony before the attack. Researchers, traders, a few families. When your ships opened fire, they were caught in the same danger as everyone else." Veltar's skin color shifted to a pale blue of surprise. His intelligence reports had indicated the colony was purely human. The presence of Zephyrian civilians changed the tactical situation entirely. "We've evacuated 67 of your people so far," Captain Vasquez added from her section of the screen. "They're receiving the same medical care and protection as our own civilians, because that's what civilized people do." The camera view shifted to show the interior of one of the passenger ships. Humans and Zephyrians were working side by side, treating wounded, distributing supplies, and caring for children of both species. The sight was so contrary to everything Veltar understood about warfare that his tactical computers couldn't process it. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You should be seeking revenge, demanding our surrender, claiming victory over your enemies." Captain Rodriguez leaned forward, his expression serious but not hostile. "Commander, I think you've got the wrong idea about humans. We're not your enemies. We're just people trying to live our lives, raise our families, and build something better than what we started with. You attacked us, so we defended ourselves. But that doesn't make us your enemies." Young Marcus Webb, the teenager who had weaponized his family's fusion drive, appeared on another section of the screen. Despite being involved in one of the most dangerous maneuvers of the battle, he looked more excited than angry. "The thing is, sir, your ships are really amazing. The engineering is incredible. We've been studying the debris from our attacks, and the materials science alone is centuries ahead of anything we have." "You're studying our technology to improve your weapons?" Veltar asked. Marcus looked confused. "Weapons? No, sir. We're thinking about improvements to mining equipment, better life support systems, more efficient engines. There are applications for peaceful use that could help both our species." Another voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to Dr. Emma Foster, the colony's chief medical officer, speaking from an improvised field hospital aboard one of the cargo haulers. "Commander, we've learned a great deal about Zephyrian physiology while treating your wounded. With your permission, we'd like to share our findings with your medical staff. Some of our techniques might be useful for treating conditions that your people consider incurable." The absurdity of the situation was overwhelming. In the middle of a battle that had effectively destroyed his fleet, the humans were offering to share medical knowledge and discussing peaceful applications of technology. It violated every principle of warfare that Veltar had been taught. Why? He asked finally. Why are you offering help to people who attacked you? Sarah Chen smiled, the expression transforming her battered face. Because that's what humans do. We fight when we have to, but we'd rather build than destroy. We'd rather heal than harm. We'd rather make friends than enemies. Even with those who have wronged you? Especially with those who have wronged us, Captain Vasquez replied. Forgiveness isn't weakness, Commander. It's strength. It's the decision to break the cycle of violence and create something better. The display shifted again, this time showing a view of the human fleet from external cameras. What Veltar saw defied his understanding of military operations. Ships that had been engaging in combat minutes earlier were now working together on rescue operations. Cargo bays that had launched improvised weapons were being converted into medical facilities and refugee shelters. The mining vessel Iron Lady, which had opened the battle with a barrage of explosive charges, was now using its heavy-duty equipment to clear debris from around the damaged colony. The salvage ship Lucky Strike, which had been systematically dismantling Zephyrian equipment, was now using those same tools to repair life support systems and restore power to critical facilities. This is not how war is conducted, Veltar said, his voice carrying a note of confusion that his subordinates had never heard before. You're right, Sarah agreed. Because this isn't a war. This is a rescue operation that happened to involve some fighting. The fighting was necessary to protect innocent people, but it was never the goal. Captain Rodriguez nodded. We didn't come here to conquer territory or claim resources. We came here to help our neighbors. Your people just happened to be in the way of that, so we moved you. Now that you're not actively shooting at civilians, we can focus on what really matters. Which is? Saving lives, rebuilding homes, taking care of families, making sure everyone gets through this safely. Rodriguez's expression softened. Including your people, Commander, because they're part of this community too, whether they know it or not. The realization hit Veltar with the force of a physical blow. The humans weren't treating this as a military engagement between hostile forces. They were treating it as a crisis response, with Zephyrians and humans both categorized as people who need help, rather than us and them. I don't understand your species, he admitted. Most people don't at first, Sarah said gently. We're contradictory. We fight fiercely to protect what we love, but we'll die to save our enemies' children. We'll turn cargo haulers into weapons of war, then use those same ships to deliver medical supplies. We'll blow up your sensors with mining charges, then patch up your wounded with our own medical supplies. Dr. Foster appeared on the screen again, this time accompanied by a Zephyrian medical officer who had been among the evacuees. Commander, this is Senior Healer Zethala from your research mission. She's been working with us to develop better treatment protocols for both species. The collaboration has been illuminating. The Zephyrian healer's skin showed the deep, blue coloration of profound thought. Commander Veltar, these humans, they are unlike any species we have encountered. Their medical practices are crude by our standards, but their compassion is extraordinary. They have risked their own lives to save our people, asking nothing in return. Commander, Captain Vasquez added, we'd like to make you an offer. Your ships are damaged but repairable. Your people are safe but need medical attention. We have the facilities and the expertise to help with both. What we're proposing is a temporary ceasefire while we handle the humanitarian crisis. After that, well, we can talk about what comes next. Veltar looked around his damaged bridge at his wounded crew, at the tactical displays showing the overwhelming force of the human fleet. By every military standard he knew, he should be preparing for a final desperate battle or attempting to negotiate the terms of surrender. Instead, the humans were offering partnership. What do you gain from this arrangement? He asked. Sarah's smile widened. We gain neighbors instead of enemies. We gain knowledge instead of scars. We gain stories to tell our children about the day we turned a battle into a rescue mission. She paused, her expression becoming more serious. And we gain the chance to show the galaxy that there's a better way to resolve conflicts than endless warfare. The communication screen divided one more time, showing views from throughout the human fleet. Families caring for alien children, engineers sharing technical knowledge with former enemies, medical personnel treating wounds without regard for species, children playing together while their parents worked side by side on repairs. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. It was inefficient, but it was effective. It was completely contrary to military doctrine, but it was working. "This is the human way," Sarah said softly. "We don't just fight to win, we fight to create a world worth living in. And that world has room for everyone." Veltar closed his 4 eyes, his mind reeling with the implications of what he was seeing. Everything he had been taught about warfare, about conquest, about the nature of conflict between species, was being challenged by the simple human insistence that there had to be a better way. When he opened his eyes again, his decision was made. "All Zephyrian vessels, this is Commander Veltar. Stand down all weapons and prepare to receive humanitarian assistance." He looked directly into the camera. "Lieutenant Chen, Captain Rodriguez, Captain Vasquez, we accept your offer, and perhaps we have much to learn from each other." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the human fleet, cheers erupted on dozens of bridges. Ships began moving toward the damaged Zephyrian vessels, not with weapons armed, but with medical teams and repair equipment ready. As Veltar watched the organized chaos of the human response, he realized that he had just witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. Not a military victory or a diplomatic triumph, but something entirely new. The transformation of enemies into neighbors through the simple application of compassion and determination. It was, he thought, the most human thing imaginable. And, perhaps, just perhaps, it was the beginning of something that could change the galaxy forever. The battle for New Tasmania was over. The work of building a better future had just begun.